What happens when a gang targets a blind woman in a park thinking she's helpless? You won't believe how she turns the tables, leaving the crowd speechless. The afternoon sun poured over the park like a warm blanket, the kind that made you want to close your eyes and breathe in the moment. For Angela Monroe, the blind woman sitting on the bench, every sound painted a picture. The children laughing at the playground, the faint rustle of leaves overhead, even the rhythmic scuff of joggers passing by. It all formed a mosaic of calm. At her side, her guide dog, Shadow, sat with the posture of a loyal sentinel, his ears perked and alert. Angela wasn't the kind of person you'd notice right away. Dressed in simple jeans and a worn leather jacket, her aura was one of quiet strength, the kind that didn't need attention to make an impact. Next to her rested a duffel bag, frayed at the seams but sturdy, a fitting companion for a woman who'd clearly seen her share of challenges. The calm shattered when a child's wail cut through the air. A little girl nearby stared down at a fallen ice cream cone, her face scrunched in heartbreak. Her parent was flustered, patting their pockets in search of a spare dollar for a replacement. Angela's head tilted slightly, listening. Without hesitation, she reached into her duffel and pulled out a neatly folded dollar bill. "Here," she said, extending it toward the parent. Her voice was warm, steady, and impossible to refuse. "Let her enjoy the day." The parent hesitated for a moment before taking the dollar. "Thank you," they murmured, their gratitude evident. Angela smiled faintly and leaned back, letting the world continue its symphony. But not everyone was impressed by her generosity. Across the park, four men lounged by a tree there, laughter sharp and mean. Rick, the self-proclaimed leader, nudged his crew and pointed. "Look at that," he sneered, blind, and handing out money like she's Oprah. The others snickered, their comments blending into a toxic hum. They didn't see kindness, they saw weakness, an easy target. Rick stood adjusting his hoodie and sauntered toward Angela with his crew trailing behind. Shadow noticed first. The dog's growl was low, almost inaudible, but Angela's hand instinctively tightened on the leash. "Hey," Rick called out, his tone dripping with mockery. "Big heart. Huh? Guess you think you're better than us." Angela turned her head slightly, her expression calm but unreadable. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone polite but firm. Rick smirked, gesturing at her cane. "Maybe you can help yourself. Or is that too much to ask?" His friends laughed, emboldened by his words. One of them, Kevin, chimed in, "Yeah, what's it like playing a hero when you can't even see who you're saving?" Angela's grip on Shadow's leash tightened. "If you have a point," she said evenly, "make it. Otherwise, move along." "Oh, I've got a point," Rick said, stepping closer. Before anyone could react, he snatched the cane from her hands and snapped it in two, letting the pieces fall to the ground. "Let's see how tough you are now." The park seemed to hold its breath. A few passers-by paused, their eyes darting between Angela and the gang, but no one stepped forward. The weight of apathy settled over the scene, heavy and suffocating. Angela bent slowly, picking up the pieces of her cane. Her movements were deliberate, her expression unreadable. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but carried an unmistakable edge. "You've made your point. Walk away now, and this ends here." For a moment, Rick faltered. Something about the way she said it, so calm and commanding, made him hesitate. But the fear of looking weak in front of his crew overpowered whatever instinct was warning him to. "Stop. Ends here," he scoffed. "Not until I say so." With a shove, he sent Angela stumbling back. Angela didn't fall. Her balance, even without her cane, was impeccable. She straightened, her grip on Shadow's leash firm, and for the first time her calm facade cracked. Her jaw tightened, her shoulders squared, and something unspoken radiated from her, a quiet but unmistakable warning. Shadow let out a sharp bark, startling even the most indifferent bystanders. Angela's lips pressed into a thin line. The air around her seemed to shift, heavy with unspoken promise. Stay tuned. The confrontation has only begun, and Angela's true nature is about to unfold. Don't miss what happens when her past comes crashing into her present. The gang circled Angela like wolves sensing an easy kill. Their laughter echoed in the park, sharp and mean, feeding off each other's arrogance. Kevin, the mouthiest of the bunch, leaned closer and muttered just loud enough for her to hear. "She can't even see us coming. Let's teach her a lesson." Shadow growled, his hackles raised, but Angela stood steady, her posture giving nothing away. If she was afraid, it didn't show. The calm in her expression only seemed to fuel their bravado. Rick smirked, taking a step forward. "What's the dog gonna do? File a report?" A man's voice broke through the tension. "Hey, leave her alone." A bystander, an older gentleman with a walking stick, shouted from a distance. The gang turned toward him, their sneers deepening. "Mind your business, old man," Jason snapped, his bravado as hollow as it was loud. The bystander hesitated, glancing at the gang's size, then at Angela. His courage wavered, and he stepped back. The gang laughed harder, the sound harsh and hollow. For them, this was just another afternoon of flexing power. They thought no one could challenge, but Angela moved. Rick barely had time to register her shift before she grabbed his arm, twisting it behind his back with the precision of a machine. The motion was so fast, so fluid, that it felt like a magician revealing the trick only after the audience had been fooled. Rick's knees buckled under the pressure, and he dropped with a cry. That silenced the park. The others froze, their laughter evaporating into stunned silence. The woman they'd marked as helpless was anything but. "You've made a mistake," Angela said, her voice even, like a parent scolding a child. "I don't want to hurt you, but I won't let you hurt me." Rick struggled, but her grip didn't budge. The passers-by, who had been too timid to intervene, began to edge closer, their phones out, recording every moment. The quiet murmur of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Who is this woman? Kevin, deciding he wasn't about to be outdone by his fallen leader, lunged. But Angela was ready. She pivoted on her heel, sidestepping his attack with such grace that it almost looked like a dance. Kevin's momentum carried him forward until he crashed into a bench, clutching his side as the wind was knocked out of him. Jason, less brave but twice as reckless, grabbed a bottle from a nearby trash can and swung it. With a clumsy arc, Angela caught his wrist mid-swing, the sharp crack of her block echoing, louder than any insult they'd hurled. The bottle fell harmlessly to the ground as Jason stumbled back, clutching his arm in pain. The gang tried to regroup, but Angela didn't give them the chance. Every movement she made was calculated, deliberate. It wasn't just self-defense. It was an art form, the kind of precision you didn't learn in a gym, but in a place where mistakes meant life or death. Rick scrambled to his feet, his confidence shattered, but his anger growing. "What the hell are you?" he barked, his voice cracking under the weight of his disbelief. Angela didn't answer. Instead, she stood tall, adjusting her jacket and brushing imaginary dust off her sleeve. "Leave now," she said, her voice steady, unshakable, "and I won't have to show you." The crowd was no longer passive. They murmured in awe, their eyes darting between Angela and the gang. Some whispered theories. Was she military? Law enforcement? Either way, they knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. But Rick wasn't ready to back down. Humiliation burned hotter than reason. His hand darted to his pocket, and the unmistakable glint of a knife caught the sunlight. He flipped it open with a dramatic flourish, pointing it at Angela. "Oh, so now you're tough," he snarled, his voice dripping with false bravado. "Let's see how tough you really are." Angela's expression didn't waver. Her eyes, unseeing but fierce, locked onto his presence with a focus that sent chills down Rick's spine. Shadow barked sharply, stepping forward, his teeth bared. The crowd gasped as the tension hit its peak. Every eye was locked on the scene, every breath held. The balance of power has shifted, but the stakes are about to skyrocket. The next move will change everything. Don't miss what happens when Angela shows exactly who she is. Rick's knife caught the sunlight as he charged, his desperation louder than the cheers of his crew. Angela loosened her grip on Shadow's leash. The dog lunged, barking fiercely, halting Rick mid-stride. His confidence wavered for just a moment, but it was all Angela needed. In one swift motion, she twisted his wrist, disarming him. The knife hit the ground with a metallic clang as she pinned Rick, his face pressed into the dirt. The crowd, silent seconds ago, erupted into cheers. Phones raised to capture the scene. Rick struggled, but Angela's hold was unbreakable. Her voice, calm but cutting, silenced his grunts. "You think you're untouchable? You don't know the first thing about strength." She released him, stepping back as Shadow returned to her side, his gaze still locked on the gang. "Go ahead," she said, gesturing toward Rick's crew, who looked frozen in place. "Pick up your pride and leave." Before anyone could move, sirens cut through the air. The gang's bravado crumbled. Police, cars screeched to a halt, officers emerging with caution. The crowd pointed at the gang, eager to share their videos. Two officers approached Angela, their expressions a mix of curiosity and respect. One officer, middle-aged and sharp-eyed, hesitated. "Ma'am," he began, lowering his voice. "Are you Lieutenant Monroe?" Angela didn't respond. Her focus was on Rick, now cuffed and silent. She stepped closer, her voice low and firm. "Next time you prey on someone, remember today. You might not be so lucky." One of Rick's crew muttered as he was led away. "A blind woman? How is that possible?" A bystander answered, stepping forward with a re-ass. A video played, Angela in full SEAL gear, executing flawless maneuvers. "She's not just any woman," they said, eyes wide. "She's a legend." Angela barely reacted. Picking up her broken cane, she murmured, "Legend or not, some fights never end." She adjusted her bag, Shadow trotting beside her as the park slowly returned to life. The sun shone on, but everything had changed. This story isn't just about strength, it's about defying expectations and proving that courage doesn't need sight, only vision.